John D. Rockefeller. Wow, what a name. It just brings up images of like unbelievable wealth, doesn't it?
Mm,
And of course, the Standard Oil empire.
absolutely dominant.
But, if you step back from just the money, the market share,
Yeah.
there's something else that was just fundamental to his success.
Yeah.
His knack for delegation. It was, well, extraordinary.
That's often overlooked, isn't it? People focus on the rubber baron or the business genius, but not how he managed it all.
Exactly. So today, in this deep dive, we're not just looking at the financial wins. We're really focusing on how he strategically empowered other people.
Which is such a key skill.
Yeah.
Timeless, really.
Okay. And it resonates so much for entrepreneurs today, right? So think of this as like a fast track to understanding those lessons. We're going to break down his delegation style across 7 key stages of his career.
Right. So this deep dive, we're looking specifically at Rockefeller's history, but through the lens of delegation. How did his approach change as the company grew? Our mission here isn't just to list facts. It's to really get into the evolution of his methods, and pull out insights that are actually valuable for leadership today.
Okay, let's do it. Section 1, the early learner. This is before Standard Oil was even a thing. We're talking young Rockefeller, assistant bookkeeper.
16 years old.
Yeah. And it wasn't about him delegating then, not really. It was more about him just soaking everything up like a sponge.
Learning the ropes.
Absolutely. He was meticulously figuring out how business worked, the systems, transportation costs, how crucial they were.
And negotiating those costs down with barge owners, freight agents.
Those famous rebates,
Yeah.
getting the best rates. And even like the tough side debt collection.
So all this practical knowledge, it really set the stage for what came next, didn't it?
It really did. His first partnerships with Maurice Clark and George Gardner,
Yeah.
responsibilities and capital were shared right from the beginning.
And then later, that big move in 65, buying out the Clark brothers, taking control of that first refinery.
That was pivotal. But what strikes me, looking back at that early time, even in those junior roles, he was building this foundation.
It wasn't just about crunching numbers as a bookkeeper, was it? It was understanding the whole machine of commerce, where the leverage points were.
Exactly. And those partnerships. His first real steps in leveraging others. Sharing the work, sure, but also the risk and reward.
So even that early, you can see signs he was learning how to leverage people effectively.
Definitely. 3 things sort of jump out. First, just forming those partnerships. Not trying to do it all himself. Sharing risk, sharing work.
Makes sense.
Second, how he actively learned negotiation. He didn't just read about it. He was out there talking to the shipping guys, figuring out how to get good terms, real hands-on learning. And third, even then, he wasn't afraid to use outside capital, borrowing from his dad, for instance, to get things moving.
Right, leveraging financial resources beyond his own.
So if we think about the benefits he saw early on, what were they?
Well, straight away, those partnerships gave him access to capital he wouldn't have had alone. And different skills, too.
Yeah, expertise.
And all that negotiating wasn't just about single deals. It was like a practical MBA in business tactics.
Yeah, pretty much.
And maybe the biggest thing, it just let him move faster, enter the business, grow quicker than he ever could have solo.
Which brings us to lessons for entrepreneurs today, right?
Absolutely.
First lesson, really understand the nuts and bolts, the operations and the negotiations, even if you're just starting out. That knowledge, it becomes leverage later.
Totally agree. You need to know how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Second, don't underestimate partnerships for getting that initial capital and sharing the risk. It can be huge.
Especially early on.
And third, learn how to manage those external relationships, suppliers, carriers, whatever. Controlling costs starts there. It's fundamental.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many founders try to do absolutely everything themselves? Rockefeller's early days show the power of connection, of using other strengths, even before you have a big, formal company.
Okay, let's shift to section 2. Founding Standard Oil itself. This is 1870. Again, he didn't go it alone.
No, he brought in key people. His brother William.
Henry Flagler, the strategy guy.
And Samuel Andrews. For the technical side, the refining expertise.
Right. And while John D. was clearly the leader president, biggest shareholder, it wasn't just him calling all the shots.
Authority was spread out more.
Yeah, and they used committees for policy decisions right from the start. Central control was in Cleveland, sure, but there was this cooperative element in decision-making.
That's interesting. It wasn't a dictatorship. He deliberately built a team.
He did. He seemed to be picking people for specific skills, people who shared the vision but brought different things to the table.
And those committees, that suggests he saw value in different viewpoints and sharing the load of making big decisions.
So what are the signs of delegation right at the founding? First, just establishing it with partners, not as a sole owner.
Okay.
Second, they actually formalized roles.
Yeah.
President, shareholders. There was a structure. It wasn't just informal chats deciding everything.
Structure matters.
And third, that committee system, actively using it to handle policy and important tasks.
So what were the payoffs for doing it that way?
Well, obviously, pooling talent and money was huge for building something ambitious like Standard Oil.
Right, you need resources.
That collaborative decision-making, using committees, probably led to smarter strategies, a stronger foundation overall.
Less likely to have major blind spots, maybe.
Could be. And crucially, it let Rockefeller focus more on the big picture, the overall strategy, while his partners managed specific areas.
Which gives us more lessons for entrepreneurs, right?
3 more, I think. 1, a strong, diverse founding team. It's not just about less work for you. It brings different expertise, different ways of seeing things right from day one.
Super important. Avoid groupthink.
2, formalize roles and responsibilities early. Don't wait. Clarity avoids confusion and builds a stable base for growth.
Get it down on paper, or at least be clear.
And 3, think about using systems like committees or dedicated teams to spread out tasks and decisions as you grow. It helps efficiency.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about startups where the founder holds on too tightly to every single decision for too long. Rockefeller's model suggests sharing leadership early can really fuel growth.
Yeah, it really seems that way. Which takes us nicely into Section 3, scaling through integration, empowering those operational leads.
Okay, so now Standard Oil is growing fast.
Explosively, buying up rivals, building distribution, marketing, globally.
And not just refining. That vertical integration thing was key, wasn't it?
Totally. Making their own barrels, hiring scientists to figure out what to do with the byproducts, controlling everything.
Wow. And with that kind of scale, you can't manage everything from the top, can you?
No way. So they had to delegate operational control to managers running different functions, different places.
So Rockefeller and Flagler were still driving efficiency, but they needed good people on the ground.
Exactly. And Rockefeller seems to have had a real eye for talent, spotting good people and empowering them, rewarding them.
So this phase, it's really about managing complexity, isn't it? Moving from setting up the company to running a giant, complicated machine.
Acquisitions brought in all these different companies that needed managing. Vertical integration created whole new areas, like chemical research, that needed experts.
And Rockefeller's skill was finding those experts and trusting them.
Seems like it. Trusting them to run their part of the show effectively.
So the signs of delegation here are pretty obvious then.
I think so. First, just the sheer number of acquisitions meant he had to delegate the running of those businesses. Couldn't do it himself.
Obvious necessity.
Second, building those huge distribution networks, the pipelines, that needed local managers. You can't run a pipeline in Texas from an office in Cleveland, not day to day.
Right. Boots on the ground.
And third, hiring specialists, scientists for byproducts, managers for barrel factories. That's clear delegation of technical stuff.
Okay. And the benefits of doing all this delegating?
Well, it allowed that incredible scaling, first off, and to take control of vertical integration.
Efficiency gains too, presumably. Letting specialists focus?
Yeah, exactly. Like the scientists finding new revenue streams from waste products. That boosts the bottom line.
Makes sense.
And strategically, maybe the biggest benefit. It freed up Rockefeller and the top leadership, Flagler, and the others to focus on the really big picture. More acquisitions, market domination.
Keeping their eye on the strategic prize.
Right. So lessons for entrepreneurs from this scaling phase.
Okay, what have we got?
1, when you grow fast, you will have to delegate operations. The trick is finding and trusting good managers.
Easier said than done sometimes, but essential.
2, get specialists for the complex stuff. Don't try to be an expert in everything. Empowering them drives efficiency and innovation too.
Hire smarter people than yourself, basically.
Yeah. And 3, delegating operations, well, lets the leaders focus on strategy, on expansion, on where the market's going. Keep that high-level view.
It really shows how a leader's role changes as a company grows, doesn't it? You go from doing everything to building and empowering the teams who do everything. Rockefeller seemed to manage that shift really well.
He did, which brings us to Section 4, the Standard Oil Trust. Formalizing control, this was 1882.
Yes, the trust. This was a big deal.
Huge. They were running into problems, right?
Yeah.
Public criticism, but also state laws limiting how big a single company could get or operate across state lines.
Yeah, legal hurdles to their consolidation strategy.
So they came up with this, well, pretty ingenious solution for the time,
Yeah.
the Standard Oil Trust.
Explain that a bit. What was it exactly?
It was basically a legal structure. They took all these different Standard Oil companies operating in various states and put them under the control of a small group, 9 trustees.
Okay.
These trustees, including John D., William Rockefeller, Flagler, Pratt, and a few others, held the shares of all the companies in trust.
So it was a way to centralize control over everything, even though they were technically separate companies.
Exactly. A formal mechanism to delegate control of the whole empire to this small, trusted board.
That's a very deliberate structural kind of delegation, isn't it? Using legal frameworks.
Absolutely. So the key signs of delegation here. First, just creating the trust structure itself as a way to unify control. Second, explicitly giving the management and oversight of this whole massive network to that defined board of 9 trustees.
Concentrated authority.
And third, the actual transfer of shares to the trustees. That gave them the real legal power within that structure.
And the benefits. Why go to all that trouble?
Well, it worked. It gave them a centralized, really effective way to manage this sprawling business across many states.
Sidestep those state law issues.
Pretty much. It let them keep consolidating and growing, working around those limits on company size.
And the result was?
Unbelievable control. By the early 1880s, the trust controlled something like 90% of U.S. oil refining and pipelines. Consistent strategy, tight control.
Wow. Okay, so lessons for entrepreneurs today. Keeping in mind, obviously, the legal world is totally different now.
Right. Massive caveat there. But maybe, 1, formal structures can still be crucial for managing complex businesses, especially with multiple parts or locations.
Structure provides clarity.
2, delegating significant control to a small, trusted group, like a board, can work well for overseeing distributed operations. Centralized oversight.
If you have the right people.
Definitely. And 3, sometimes how you structure your organization can help you navigate regulations or enable growth. But, and this is a big but, you have to be incredibly careful about the legal and ethical side today.
Yeah, the trust was super effective, but it also became like Exhibit A in the antitrust debates later on, didn't it? Shows the complexities when you concentrate that much power, even through delegation.
That's a really important point. And it leads us into Section 5, transitioning leadership. Rockefeller starts thinking about retirement.
Right. This is the mid-1890s. Standard Oil is absolutely dominant.
He built the empire. And now he starts to step back from the day-to-day grind.
So he actually retired, or just slowed down.
He began transitioning. He explicitly handed over the daily management of the trust to one of the key trustees, John Dustin Archbold.
Archbold, okay. So a designated successor.
Exactly. Rockefeller himself started focusing more on leisure, his estates, golf. But he was still the largest shareholder, still had huge influence, just not running the show day to day.
That's a major act of delegation, isn't it? Succession planning in action.
It really is. He's entrusting the whole thing to someone else, showing incredible confidence in Archbold and the team he'd built.
So the signs of delegation here are pretty clear.
I'd say so.
Whoa.
1, formally stepping back from that daily operational role.
2, explicitly giving Archbold the reins for day-to-day management. Clear handover.
And 3, his own personal shift, focusing on other things, leisure, philanthropy starting up.
And the benefits of doing it this way, this planned transition.
Well, it allowed Rockefeller to ease into retirement while the company kept running smoothly. Continuity of leadership.
That's huge for a massive organization. Avoids chaos.
Definitely. And he put it in the hands of someone trusted and proven. Archbold was already deep inside the trust.
Not bringing in an outsider.
Right. And it just demonstrated his trust in the whole system, that it could run without his constant direct touch.
So valuable lessons there for founders thinking about their own future or exit strategy.
Absolutely. 1, plan for succession way ahead of time. Identify potential leaders in your team.
Don't leave it to the last minute.
2, when you do step back from the day-to-day, really delegate it. Give the new leader the authority they need to actually lead. Don't meddle constantly. Yeah. And 3, delegating successfully at the top, like this, frees the founder up for new things or just enjoying the fruits of their labor while maybe still keeping strategic oversight or ownership.
It's interesting how many founders struggle with that letting go part, isn't it? Even when it's probably best for everyone. Rockefeller, despite keeping his shares and influence, seems to have managed the operational handover.
He does. Which brings us to a whole different kind of delegation in Section 6, philanthropy. building institutions.
Ah, his second career. Inspired by Andrew Carnegie, right?
Yeah, Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth.
Yeah.
Rockefeller ended up giving away, what was it, over $500 million back then?
Which was an astronomical sum.
And his approach to giving it away was just as systematic, just as, well, delegated as his business approach. He basically pioneered modern philanthropy with foundations.
Not just writing checks, but building organizations to manage the giving.
Exactly. And he relied heavily on advisors. Frederick Taylor Gates was key, and his own son, John D. Jr.
Guiding the strategy.
Helping him decide where the money could have the most impact. And he funded massive institutions that would outlive him. University of Chicago,
The Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, which is now Rockefeller University.
the Rockefeller Foundation itself. And these organizations then took on the job of managing the money and running huge projects.
Like the campaign against hookworm?
Yeah, big public health initiatives. So the foundations were themselves vehicles for further delegation. And John D. Jr. really carried that torch, didn't he? Rockefeller Center, donating the land for the UN.
So the delegation principles applied just as much to giving away money as to making it.
It seems so. Building organizations, empowering experts.
So the signs of delegation in his philanthropy.
Okay, first, creating those formal foundations. The Rockefeller Foundation, General Education Board, Rockefeller Institute. Structures designed to manage and distribute the wealth.
Not just ad hoc giving.
Second, relying closely on those advisors, Gates, his son, to shape the strategy and make key decisions, trusting their expertise.
Leveraging expert knowledge.
And third, entrusting the actual doing, the execution of big projects like public health campaigns, to the institutions and their staff.
Okay, and the benefits of this philanthropic delegation.
Well, it made the giving systematic and targeted, aiming for maximum impact, not just scattering money around.
The strategic giving.
It also meant experts in fields like medicine or education were directing the funds in those areas. Probably much more effective use of the money.
Right. Let the doctors decide how best to fund medical research.
Exactly. And, crucially, it created lasting institutions. Organizations that could keep working on these big goals long after he was gone, building something enduring.
So, lessons here, even for entrepreneurs maybe not operating at that scale of giving.
I think so. One, if you want to make a big impact, whether it's business or giving back, you often need to build organizations and delegate the work to good people.
Build the vehicle for the impact.
Two, don't be afraid to lean on experts when you're dealing with complex areas outside your core knowledge. Trust their advice.
Seek out good counsel.
And three, structuring your giving, maybe through a foundation or donor-advised fund, helps ensure it's managed professionally and lasts longer.
It really drives home that big visions, whether business or social good, need structure and delegation to become reality, doesn't it?
It really does. Which leads us to our final section, Section 7, the legacy of delegated wealth and influence.
So, looking beyond Rockefeller's own life.
Yeah, the money he made and the structures he set up to manage it, those foundations, the trusts, they continued having a huge impact long after he died.
How so?
Well, that distributed wealth basically enabled his descendants to do all sorts of things throughout the 20th century. Philanthropy, obviously, but also business, politics.
Right. Johnny Jr. carried on the philanthropy with things like Rockefeller Center.
And then the grandsons, Nelson in politics, David in banking, Lawrence in conservation.
A multi-generational influence.
Exactly. And it shows the power of that distributed leadership, that distributed influence. It wasn't just one man. It was a system he set up that allowed the family's impact to evolve over time.
So the delegation wasn't just for his lifetime. It was building a framework for the future. That's powerful.
Yeah. The signs of this ongoing legacy delegation are pretty clear. First, the foundations he started. They're still operating, still evolving, run by later generations and professional staff, tackling modern problems.
Adapting over time.
Second, you see his son, John D. Jr., taking on huge independent projects like Rockefeller Center. Using the family resources and name, yes, but pursuing his own vision, empowered by the structure.
Right, not just maintaining the old stuff.
And third, just the diversity of things. Later generations got involved in business, politics, the arts, conservation. They were empowered by that distributed wealth and the family network.
Okay, and the benefits of this kind of legacy structure.
Well, it allowed the family's influence to continue and actually diversify across generations instead of just fading away.
Kept the name relevant in different ways.
It provided a framework for the kids and grandkids to pursue their own interests and make their own contributions.
Gave them a platform.
And it ensured the long-term management and growth of the philanthropic mission, adapting it as the world changed.
So final lessons from this legacy aspect for entrepreneurs thinking long-term.
Maybe three things. One, think beyond yourself. Build structures for your wealth or your company that can last and have an impact after you're gone.
Plan for endurance.
Two, empowering the next generation, whether it's family or successors in the business, with resources and responsibility, fosters new innovation and continued influence.
Trusting the future.
And three, a strong legacy isn't just about money. It needs the vehicles, the structures, the organizations, and maybe some shared values to guide how that legacy unfolds.
It really hits home that lasting success might be less about what you personally build and more about what you enable others to build long after you're involved.
That sums it up pretty well. So bringing this whole deep dive together, Rockefeller's mastery of delegation, it seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, from those first partnerships through the complexity of the trust right up to the foundations.
His ability to strategically empower others was just fundamental, a cornerstone of building that massive company and a lasting philanthropic legacy.
And the core lesson for entrepreneurs today seems pretty stark. You really can't scale sustainably without trust and delegation.
Nope. You've got to build strong teams, empower your managers, create those effective structures, plan for transitions, use formal ways to handle complexity.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Okay.
Given the incredible power Rockefeller gathered, largely through delegating authority so effectively, what are the ethical considerations? What are the responsibilities that come with distributing power like that in any large organization today? How do you find that balance between effective delegation and necessary oversight?
That's a really good question. Balancing empowerment with accountability. Still hugely relevant. John D. Rockefeller. Wow, what a name. It just brings up images of like unbelievable wealth, doesn't it? And of course, the Standard Oil empire.
Absolutely dominant.
But, you know, if you step back from just the money, the market share,
Yeah.
there's something else that was just fundamental to his success.
Yeah.
His knack for delegation. It was, well, extraordinary.
That's often overlooked, isn't it? People focus on the rubber baron or the business genius, but not how he managed it all.
Exactly. So today, in this deep dive, we're not just looking at the financial wins. We're really focusing on how he strategically empowered other people.
Which is such a key skill.
Yeah.
Timeless, really.
Okay. And it resonates so much for entrepreneurs today, right? So think of this as like a fast track to understanding those lessons. We're going to break down his delegation style across 7 key stages of his career.
Right. So this deep dive, we're looking specifically at Rockefeller's history, but through the lens of delegation. How did his approach change as the company grew? Our mission here isn't just to list facts. It's to really get into the evolution of his methods, and pull out insights that are actually valuable for leadership today.
Okay, let's do it. Section 1, the early learner. This is before Standard Oil was even a thing. We're